Head-to-head, I'm David Horak. Fall break is next week. What you got on your itinerary?
And I'm Jordan Morandini. Nothing wrong with chowing down on some pumpkin pie, David, but where I come from, you cannot live until you've had a Philly cheesesteak. Order up, because we're going head-to-head right now. Welcome to Head-to-Head, everyone. Once again, we start with the Valpo football team. Another week, another competitive loss for Valpo as they hung in with Drake, but fell 35-21 to the Bulldogs. David, I ask you, do you feel as if this team has progressed now from a year ago?
Well, if you look at it just from a numbers perspective, just at the record, no. But if you look between the lines in the stats, absolutely yes, because here's why. You know, Dave Cicchini, I interviewed him during summer camp, and he said that the success of the PFL, when you look at Dayton and Butler, San Diego and Jacksonville as of recently, you look at them and you try to think, what is the secret to success? And it's based on veteran experience. That's what he said. And when you look at last year's 1-9 team for Valparaiso, they had over half the team as true freshmen. And when you start a good number of them, of those freshmen, as well as have them in the two, or at least have them in the two deep, you're going to have some inexperience issues. And when you have that continuing to be the case here, even though they have another year of experience under their belt for these freshmen, it's going to have a lot of hiccups down the road. And that's why, you know, Morehead State, this has been the case almost two, if not, 2014 and 2016 has been the same case with Morehead State, where they almost beat the Eagles, but did not because of a last-minute drive by Morehead State. Yeah. Whereas if you look at Drake, they were not able to compete a year ago, but they were able to this year, but they still lost because they cannot compete with the size advantage that the Bulldogs have. So it's a step in the right direction, baby steps indeed, but they're not where they need to be. And so they have progressed if you look between the lines, but the numbers have not changed over the last 3 years with Dave Cicchini at the helm.
Yeah, and you look at it from this standpoint, you know, a year ago they had one win and one loss within 14 points. And that was that Morehead loss in the last couple plays. And then this year they have 2 wins, 2 losses within 14. Already with, I believe, 5 games to go now. So this is a team, I mean, offensively they scored 147 points through 6 games. A year ago, just 159 total. So this is a team offensively that's looking better. Along with that, defensively, a year ago they gave up 43 a game, just 33 a game this year. So this is a team, David, on both sides of the ball that has definitely made improvements.
Yeah, but I want to see veteran experience stretched a bit further because they have Jimmy Sewald, a true freshman, doing a lot better than Ryan Clark has. 30 more points in QB efficiency. You also have a lot more completion percentage, 3% better in passing, 70 more total yards than Ryan Clark so far in this season. And you have a junior compared to a freshman. It's absolutely unbelievable. We'll see how that works. Tough loss for women's soccer this past weekend, falling to Wright State 2-1. That makes it 2-2 over the last 4 matches, all of them in conference. In their current state, is Valpo women's soccer morally considered a contender or a pretender this year in the Horizon?
Well, it's definitely a debatable topic. You look at this team; they're a team that has a lot of good senior talent, but along with that, some really good young players as well. I wouldn't consider this team, obviously not an outright top contender in the Horizon League this season, but they are a team that I think, they're not a pretender either. They're a team that can definitely make some noise in the Horizon League. I'd consider them almost a little bit of a sleeper in the conference this year. I think that's a better word than contender or pretender. I think they're a little bit of a sleeper. You know, their 2 losses have come to 2 good teams, Wright State and Detroit. Detroit at home, Wright State on the road. Both 2-1 losses. Both had some tough situations, how they ended up losing that. You have to look at it from this standpoint. The top 6 get into the Horizon League tournament. Crusaders right now are at 5th, a game ahead of Oakland, and tied with UIC for that 5th spot, 5th and 6th spot. Oakland's in 7th, a game behind. And you look at their schedule ahead. Youngstown State at UIC, Oakland, and Northern Kentucky. So you see both UIC and Oakland right there. So moving forward, you have an easy game, or not an easy game, but a game you should win this week against Youngstown State. Then you have those 2 games, and then Northern Kentucky as well, which is a team that's played really well so far in Horizon League play. It's going to be interesting moving forward, David, but I think I would consider them a sleeper in the Horizon League.
Horizon League women's soccer really dwells on, talented players that step up beyond their players. I mean, April Cronin and Corey Griffith are 2 examples. But when you look beyond Valparaiso, you have Youngstown State's Ernestina Abambila. I believe I pronunciated that right. But the Ghana native, she leads the Horizon League in assists per game, as well as total points by any individual player. In Northern Kentucky as well, down the road, they have Emily Lohman, and then you have Milwaukee with their players as well. And also Kata Montgomery, the Penguin goalkeeper, she leads the entire Horizon League as well in saves. And compared to Tess Barrett, that's almost twice her value. And so you have standouts across the board for all of these Horizon League teams. What is the factor? And that is camaraderie and communication. We talked about this last week, how Horizon League women's soccer, when they're banging on all cylinders, they have what it takes to win the Horizon League. We saw them at their peak performance against Milwaukee that led pretty much the entire Horizon League in so many categories with individual players as well. And so they beat them 2-1 in overtime. They may have the capacity to do that against Youngstown State. They definitely are a sleeper, but it's more obvious if they are banging on all cylinder.
Yeah, this is a huge game this weekend, so Crusaders need to take care of business at home against Youngstown State. Now let's transfer into volleyball as the Crusaders swept Oakland 3-0 last night. But the bigger picture only shows a 2-5 record in conference play, in addition to losing 10 of their last 13. So David, I must ask you, do you consider this kind of a lost season for Karen Avery and company?
Well, given the circumstances, you have to just accept the reality that yes, this is a losing season, but in the effort within to try and make the best that you can to make lemonade with lemons, Karen Avery does not go down without a fight, and she needs to be accredited for the many losses that they've had. They've lost 10 of their last 13, and even more so, they have had so many injuries. And you have to think about the game plan that they had against Oakland, where they swept 3-0 with Morgan Longoria at a very, very interesting libero position. And with the rules in place, they were still able to sweep the Golden Grizzlies, a really, really talented Oakland team that is able to compete against some teams but aren't really part of the championship contention. So, this is a losing season for Karen Avery, but in the effort in trying to keep themselves in the loop of the Horizon League Championship or in the Horizon League Tournament qualifying, that is, she's definitely a winner in that category to me.
Yeah, and you look at it, it may be a losing season. It is not a lost season. There's no question this is not going to be a lost season for the Crusaders. I mean, we have to talk about this win last night. Just absolutely unbelievable. At Oakland, this is an Oakland team that was #1 in the Horizon League. Crusaders are playing, as you mentioned, without their top two setters. Morgan Longoria was playing the libero. You mentioned that. She was setting as well last night. 28 assists for her last night. Big-time performance. Just absolutely unbelievable. Now, you have to look at this, too. You mentioned kind of a lost season. If this is going to be a lost season, it's one where they're not going to make the conference tournament. I mean, that's pretty clear. And the top 6, just like in soccer, make it in volleyball as well. There's still 9 conference games left in volleyball. So it's a lot different where in soccer you only play each team once. In volleyball you have a lot more conference games. So a lot more opportunity to move forward as the season progresses. At 2-5, look, you struggled in the opener now. But with 9 games left, David, you have an opportunity to make a splash still.
Yeah, you really do, because they play Oakland at the Arc once again in their final home game of the season. And so when it really comes down to the wire, the best comes out of the best teams when it comes down to the wire, because the playoffs really make it's what you do in the fourth quarter, in the third, fourth, fifth sets, whatever determines the match, that brings out the best in all the players. So, absolutely. So last Saturday, Mike Avery and the men's soccer team drew with Milwaukee, but are still sitting atop the Horizon League with 11 points at 3-0-2. Numbers don't lie, Jordan. Will they finish at #1?
They're in a great position. There's no question. They're in a great position. You look at the remaining schedule, they do have games against the #3 team in conference right now in UIC. That's on the road, so that's obviously going to be a big game moving forward. And they finish off the season at home against Wright State, who's the #2 team in the conference. So their schedule gives them a really good chance to create some separation if they're able to win those games, create separation from that second and third spot. Moving forward, I mean, they're going to have to earn it, though. That, on the other side of things, it gives them the chance to create separation, but it also gives those other teams a chance to make a jump. So they're going to have to earn the opportunity. And we've talked in the show, David. I mean, the past couple weeks, this is a team. They have the senior experience, they have the veteran goalkeeper in Nico Campbell, and they have a couple different scoring options. If a team is going to, I mean, they're in first now. If a team is going to hold on, they have all of the pieces that are needed to make sure and hold on to that #1 spot.
And at the same time, though, they have given away big-time weaknesses where, against Milwaukee, a game that they should have won based on the offensive options that you said, they gave away a backdoor wide open with Jacob Pisek in there. And what I love about Mike Avery, as well as Karen Avery when it comes to giving young players as well as transfers experience, is they give them time. Against teams that some of them are very, very competitive, like Milwaukee in men's soccer, where they were going to take the Crusaders' top spot in the Horizon League if they were to win against Valpo. The Crusaders were at a chance to beat them in that game, but Pisek and some of the defenders for Valparaiso had that back open door. So they do have some weaknesses that other teams in the Horizon League, like Oakland, once they have their situation set into trying to make themselves a first-place comeback. Whereas if you look at the offensive personnel that Mike Avery has to his advantage, we have Isaiah Madrid coming up in the fast break. He is on fire. There's no doubt about it. This kid is on fire. There's no stopping to Isaiah Madrid. Pedal to the metal. But what's great about this men's soccer team is that there are so many different weaponry, different types of weaponry that he has. Kenan Anderson, Suleiman Thomas, Stefan Pulings. The names could not be any more limited in terms of quantity. There's quality and quantity on this team.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Milwaukee game. It's not always bad to take a draw, though. If you're going to come out, you're okay with taking a draw. You still get some points. When it comes to, you never want to drop a game at home, and they didn't. They got the draw, so we'll move on.
I like them at Green Bay, by the way, this weekend. They really have what it takes.
Yeah, good opportunity.
Coming up, Chicago is flying the W into the NLCS. We'll see if there are any doubts going forward for the Cubbies.
Also, Jerry Jones still sticking with an injured Tony Romo as his #1 QB. Is he reasonable or just out of his mind? We'll perform a brain scan on him after this.
Good morning, Valparaiso University. What's the better way to start your day than with a new jam? And WVUR has just what you need.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it... If dying young won't change your mind, baby, right.
Broadcasting sports, news, weather, and music, on air, online, and on campus. WVUR is my jam.
Unless you live under a rock, you all know the Chicago Cubs are winners of the NLDS, defeating San Francisco 3-1 in the series, capped off by a dramatic 4-run ninth-inning comeback in Game 4. Throughout the series, David, I have to ask you now, was there anything that you saw that told you that maybe this isn't the year for the Chicago Cubs?
There could have been a couple hiccups in the starting bullpen, especially in the closer. We thought Aroldis Chapman, he may be the best closer in the league, but you may think, well, the Giants have the capacity to make some big comebacks. But Chapman being Chapman, and I was worried going into the series before any game happened that, with all the hype, with the 100-plus year history that the Cubs has without a World Series, you may think the nerves, the emotion that the entire Windy City has, that all the emotion and the wind at their back going into the postseason, you may think that may consume the Cubs. But you got to look at Joe Madden. Look at the experience that he has in his entire managing career. And the fact that he has that veteran experience is what really surprises me, in the fact that the Cubs kept their composure and were able to just drive it out with the Giants even after that surprising Game 3 loss to San Francisco. And so, are there any doubts? Hitting, I don't think so. Pitching, I definitely do not think so. When you look at the ERA in terms of the last 7 days, which is obviously the postseason, 3.95 combined. That is starters and bullpen and closers all combined. It is absolutely just all cylinders on fire. They're just have the pedal to the metal. There's no stopping the Chicago Cubs team unless there's some superstition out there, like the Black Cat in the 60s and Steve Bartman in 2003. There's only something superstitial will stop Chicago, the Cubbies, that is, not the White Sox, of course, but the Cubbies from winning the World Series in 2016.
Yeah, and one thing, when it comes down to it, in October, what you need is resiliency. You need to be able to bounce back in a series, bounce back in a game. And we saw that in more than one situation in this series against the Giants. In Game 3, Chris Bryant hits the 2-run bomb to send it to extra innings. Of course, they didn't end up winning the game, but still having that confidence, having the ability to bring that game back. And then
I think I know what you're going to go at here with Game 4.
And of course, Game 4, a 4-run ninth inning. Are you kidding me? To go ahead, and then Chapman comes in. He shuts the door. It's crazy to me how good Chapman. I mean, he threw, I think, 12, 13 pitches in that Game 4 win, and they were all fastballs, all at 99 plus.
Oh.
The hitters know it's coming, and they still can't hit it. So we'll see if the Cubbies can continue. But now we're going to transition into the Dallas Cowboys, and that's their quarterback, Dak Prescott, who is at 69% pass completions on the season, averaging at least 247 passing yards and a TD per game. Yet owner Jerry Jones is still listing an old and injured Tony Romo as his #1 QB on the rotation. David, I have to ask you, why does Jerry Jones still give confidence to Tony Romo in number 9?
Well, here's why. We talked about, I think in the first episode, about Tom Brady being a system quarterback. And what really makes the Patriots function is obviously success. They win. They find ways to win, illegal or not, depending on the controversies if you look at them that way, historically with New England. But they always find ways to win, especially in the backfield. They always find a great offensive line, and there's no question the Cowboys have a great offensive line too. But when you look at the Patriots with their quarterback situation, Tom Brady always performs. There's no question. He may have an injury here and there, but Brady always finds a way to perform. And of course, when you look at the backups in who New England had to go with the first 4 games, they still found ways to get the dub on Sunday. It's phenomenal how Bill Belichick is able to raise up New England. Now, when you look at Dallas, Romo is injured. He has not found a decent wide receiver in a long time, other than Ezekiel Elliott with Dak Prescott. And the fact that Romo has had a long history with Dallas is the reason why Jones is still sticking to him like glue. And there's nothing wrong with that until you look at the numbers. And that's why Dak Prescott has already given Dallas so many wins. And the answer could not be obvious. But I am still flabbergasted. I have to go to the long words here, Stephen A. Smith style. I have to be flabbergasted in my reaction to Jerry Jones. It's time to move on. It's time to pass on the torch to a younger quarterback that can make good passes and hit the targets and get victories for Dallas.
And actually, we're on the other side of things here, because I'm with Jerry Jones. I think, this is a team with the offensive line. It's an offensive line that's going to be able to keep Romo healthy when he comes back. Tony Romo, his last 3 seasons, Dallas-wise, 23-11 as a starting quarterback. I mean, that's a good solid record. One that is good enough. He's had seasons at 13-3 and 11-5 in his time in Dallas, and only one time has been under 500. So I mean, he's had good teams around him, and it's the same team that Dak Prescott is having success with now. You also have to look at the Dez Bryant situation. Dez is going to be coming back. Dez is a guy that needs the ball. We saw Dak get him involved a little bit, but there's no question that Tony Romo is the better option when it comes to getting Dez Bryant the ball in the deep routes and such. Prescott's a shorter quarterback.
But Romo is old. He is so old. He's 36 years old. He's starting to run out of time.
Old, but has success.
Well, he's got to turn on the towel soon, otherwise it's going to run out pretty quickly. Anyway, this season, speaking of the NFL, there are too many names of wide receivers that have made big plays in big games for big wins. Some names are new, others have stuck around in the conversation. Which 3 receivers, starting with you, Jordan, would you want in your spread if you were to have all free-for-all for your fantasy team for this year?
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit different probably than what we would have said before the season. I think there's no question both of us would have had a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. potentially in our top 3.
Yeah.
And now, he's struggled a little bit to open up the year. He's not in my top 3 right now, David. I like Antonio Brown as the number 1, and that is a clear pick. I think it's an easy option. Brown can do it all on the field. He's had the big games. He has the quarterback to get him the ball in Roethlisberger. There's nothing really Antonio Brown can't do, and other than
twerk.
Yeah, a little bit weak on that. But at number 2, I like Julio Jones. He's kind of inconsistent, always battling a couple injuries. He's always questionable. Every week he is questionable with some different nagging injury. But he is a guy. He's one of the most explosive receivers in the game. We saw that absolutely light up the Panthers with a 300-yard game. I believe that was last week or 2 weeks ago. And then last, I'm going to go with A.J. Green. I think A.J. Green is my number 3. He's a guy who, if he had a little bit better quarterback, I think he could easily be 1 or 2. But Dalton maybe holds him back a little bit. But A.J. Green is as talented as the top 1 and 2 guys on the board. And there's really nothing A.J. Green can't do as a receiver. So those are my top 3: Brown, Julio, and A.J. Green. Any differences?
If we were to have a draft and you had the first dibs, and I would go crazy if you took Antonio Brown. He's also my number 1 because he's had a fantastic year so far. And Big Ben, just like Tom Brady, they're old guys, they're veteran QBs that know how to pass. And Brown knows how to make space, especially in the defensive secondary. No question. DeAndre Hopkins, he has had a fantastic year in Houston. 4 games averaging in double-digit yardage average. 10.8, 16.1, 14.0, 11.2, 4.0 receiving yardage. Average receiving that way against Tennessee. However, Julio Jones, I do like him as well. 24 catches for 517 yards, 3 touchdowns this season. He brings a lot of diversity. He brings a lot more variety from Matt Ryan and in Atlanta. And so they can go with the shotgun pass in the backfield for their running back. Forgot his name right off the top of my head. But Julio Jones, he's got what it takes to be probably one of the best receivers in the entire NFL, given the fact that the Falcons have been absolutely red hot on offense, and Ryan has, even against very, very tough teams like Seattle, they have had fantastic offensive blowouts this year. I like Julio as well, and Antonio Brown, but I like DeAndre Hopkins as well, in my view.
This group of 3.
So back to America's pastime. The ALCS is set with the Indians and the Blue Jays as they are ready to face off tomorrow in Cleveland. Anything can happen. Who you got, in how many games, and why?
Who do I have, and how many games, and why? I had a feeling the Blue Jays were going to ride that wild card momentum against the Rangers. They did. Just a clean 3-0 sweep. Really no issues there. The Indians, on the other hand, were pretty impressive. I have to admit, I did not see that series going that way against the Red Sox. A 3-0 sweep, and really, they easily looked like the better team. I mean, there's no question about it. So these are 2 teams both coming off sweeps. Kind of an interesting dynamic here. The Indians, you look at them, they're extremely well coached with Terry Francona at the helm. He's a guy who's had playoff experience in the past. With pitching-wise, these 2 teams are pretty even, I think, because neither have really, the big-name starters that that some teams have, like the Cubs with Arrieta, the Giants did with Bumgarner. They don't really have those huge names, but they have 3 different starters that can consistently give good outings. Outing in, outing out, Kluber, Bauer, and Tomlin on the Indian side of things. Stroman, Happ, and Estrada on the Blue Jays. Personally, I have the Blue Jays, though. I think their offense is a little bit better. I think it fits well for playoff baseball. It's a lot more powerful. They got those guys, Encarnacion, Batista in the middle. I think it's a close series, but I do like the Blue Jays in 6 games with a 4-2 series win.
Just like football, when we talked about ValpoVUTV with veteran experience ruling and reigning in the PFL, same thing with baseball. You really have to look at who are the veterans on the team that can lead the younger guys, the rookies, into a winning season and hopefully Commissioner's Trophy. That being said, I like the Blue Jays as well because of these big-time names: Tulowitzki, Donaldson, and Encarnacion. Coco Crisp is a great outfielder, a great leader, a good veteran for the Indians. But when you look at the pitching and the matchup there, you have to understand that the Blue Jays, when you look at the entire game, not just the pitching, Jordan, but when you look at the game as a whole, look at the Blue Jays last year. They had a big-time brawl, and they had a little bit of a sketchy postseason run. This year, they are hungry. They want it. They want it so bad. They want to scratch and claw themselves deep into this postseason with the pain of last year's drop to the Kansas City Royals in the ALCS. I like the Blue Jays as much as I want to go with Terry Francona and the Indians with the youth that they have. It's going to take some experience to own and take care of the nerves that go into each and every postseason game, especially in the championship series where that's what it takes. So anyway, you know what's coming after this. It'll be our fast break. Don't go anywhere.
Good morning, Valparaiso University. What's a better way to start your day than with a new jam? And WVUR has just what you need.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it...
If Daniel won't change your mind, baby, right.
Broadcasting sports, news, weather, and music on air, online, and on campus. WVUR is my jam.
It's time for the fast break. Let's start the clock. Valpo Volleyball will win 4 games in conference this season. Over or under?
Over, specifically because of the win over Oakland yesterday. Dave Cicchini and the Crusaders are at Stetson this Saturday, but will they win at least one more game this year, David?
One word: helmet. I got them against Butler this year. Women's soccer currently 5th in the Horizon. Will they finish in the top 3?
Definitely debatable, but I like them to finish 3rd, so sneaking into that top 3. Men's soccer midfielder Isaiah Madrid has 7 goals on the year. Will he have 10 at the end?
IUPUI, just like Nico Campbell, will he finish with a couple more shutouts? Obviously, Isaiah Madrid will finish with a lot more goals this year than even 10. I'll say even 12. Finally, will Valpo men's basketball be ranked in the top 25 at some point this season?
With Peters and a good non-conference schedule, I believe they do.
Yeah, I like them too. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of experience down the road. A new coach, the hype may be too much, but with Peters coming back, it's going to be a no-brainer. I like them in the top 25. They beat Rhode Island really, really bad last year. Come on. Rhode Island is no. Just no. They obviously are going to get ranked this year because of the experience they're bringing
and
back.
Especially with some other Horizon League teams losing some of their key players.
Absolutely.
But that'll do it for this edition of Head to Head.
Fall break will push us back to the 27th. Still, same time, same place.
Follow us on Twitter at VUTV Sports for the latest.
Until then, hey, save us some cider and donuts, and we'll see you next time.